Benson is a 10 times award-winning barber. He's a Baby Bliss Pro platform artist and educator. He did an Old Spice commercial where he was featured. He's a culture brand ambassador. He's the owner of The Office Professional Hair Studio. And in collaboration with Cadman Barber Academy, he's a regular guest educator. Victoria is the first female educator in Canada to teach fundamentals of barbering and cosmetology at Marca College. She's a portfolio artist with experience with over 10 years being on TV sets, movie sets, music videos. She's the co-owner of The Office Professional Hair Studio alongside with Benson, and a platform educator and artist for Baby Bliss Pro. She's a licensed cosmetologist, soon to be certified trichologist. She's a published artist in magazines such as Salon Magazine, Fashion Magazine, and EFE Magazine cover.
Hello, today we are going to be talking about what it's like running a business with your spouse. Francis and I, we both have businesses that we run together. And we also have Benson and Victoria. They have a business. So today we're going to be talking about what it's like, the bad, the ugly, and the most beautiful, amazing things about it. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
What made you guys want to go into business together?
Well, I mean, the first things was we were both in the same industry for quite some time. I was in the industry for about 6-7 years before I met Benson, and I was focusing on cosmetology and barbering at the same time. Long story short, when we met and we got to know each other, the more we found that we had a very similar interests. We had very similar goals. We both loved cosmetology and barbering as well, and it was perfect because he had, a lot of foundation in the barbering world already, right? And I was kind of like getting into it for a few years, and then when we collided together, it was just like, it kind of just made like a very beautiful world because we were able to intertwine all the things that we love together. And then we're around the same age group too, which was nice. Like we both grew up the same year, so we had like the same like taste in music, we had like same similar interests. And then the more we got to work with each other, we realized why not open up a business together, right? Because we complement each other so well. We had a really good dynamic. We got along very well. We wanted to keep to like communication, so we felt like it was just something that we wanted to do.
Yeah, I felt like that was one of the main things because like when I first started off, I was majority just a barber, and I felt like my weakness was on the styling side. I later on became like a licensed hairstylist and stuff, but Vic was what actually helped me to do that in that time, right? So then we found like she was stronger in styling, I was stronger in barbering, and together we complement each other a lot more. So then we thought like that was perfect because like anybody watching this could like relate. Usually like when you go to a barbershop, you get a really nice fade and a lineup, and then it's like, how do they color your hair, or how do they blow dry or cut it, style it, And then vice versa, you go to like a stylist and they do really good scissor work and styling, but then there's no fade, they don't do the beard, they don't even know how to blend in the beard. So we always experienced that on both sides, where people would come into the shop, like when I do men's, I'm always hearing about people like, yo, I used to go to my barber to get a fade, and then I would have to go to a hair salon to cut the top, and then and the other way around. So when we got together, it was like almost immediate. It was like an answer that the industry like didn't have much of. So it was like a no-brainer that like together we would have something that's more unique that most shops don't have. So that's why like the artists that we have here now, everybody has experience in styling. So if they don't like have like the skills to style, they would not actually be able to get a job here, because most people that come in here, they need that hybrid style. So Charles, for example, a gentleman that we have over here, he was like doing stuff that like I wasn't even doing when I was his age. Like he was doing chemical services, he's doing color. He's like a true definition of like a hybrid stylist that's like upcoming. So that was, to answer your question, that was like the main reason as to why we decided it was a good idea to get into business together, because there wasn't a lot of businesses that had that model.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we both came from different backgrounds. Like, I was working downtown for like 7 years. You guys know, like, we worked together before. We did like other events together. I was working like portfolio, and then I always knew I wanted to open up a shop too. But I didn't. For some reason, I couldn't see myself just doing it by myself. Like, I couldn't envision it for some reason. I just felt like something was missing. And then, like, when I met him, I was like, I could see myself now, like, opening up that kind of world, and then having a partner that also wanted to do the same thing. So it was really cool.
That's great. And who runs the business side of things, and who does the cutting? Because I know that's hard to mix the business and the
I think we,
the creative
in
side.
that respect, everybody has kind of roles where they do majority of like, but to answer your question, we kind of do like a little bit of both. But I would say like, Vic would do a lot of like the nitty gritty stuff. That's like, I guess you guys can relate. Like Marina on your side as well. I see that she does a lot of like.
Because we like it.
Yeah. She's just like a lot better at it, right? She's more organized and stuff like that, and I'm more of like the creative, you know, and that's usually gets really messy as you know, people as artists, for instance, you can artists are not always the most like organized people, right? And actually, I seen something that you posted, Marina, and it was great because it was like you got to bring something to the table that the other person don't have. I think you had a podcast about like going to business with somebody, where like you can't have two people that like do the same thing, you know. So we have that, and that's what another reason how it worked out because Vic was able to kind of do all that business side stuff, more of the nitty gritty stuff. Of course, we lead our meetings together and we do all these things together. I sometimes I come up more with the vision, but we always like everything like kind of together. And then whoever's stronger in that field will take the step in that project. And then that's kind of how we bounce it back and forth, and that's how it works. Because like you can't always just like want to be the lead all the time, because like what if you suck at it? Then if somebody's better, then they should be the lead for that, right? So I think it comes down to like really leaving your ego at the door sometimes, and it's like it's not about that at all. It's like if you're good at something, do it, and if you're not, and if there's somebody better, step back, learn from that, and see how you can make their job easier, so it'll be easier as a whole. You know, so.
I like that, yeah.
And so have you guys, is it just us, or like have you noticed that since you guys are partners and you have a team, one of you is always the good cop?
Oh
one is
my
always the bad
God,
cop?
yes.
Which one, and tell us about it.
I'll let Vic dive into that, but like right off the bat, it's not like there's a designated good cop or bad cop. It's just that we both have different personalities and how to deal with different situations. So depending on like the situation and who sees it in that way, then that's who the bad cop is for that day, or the good, you know, or for another day, right? So
Yeah, I mean,
it's kind of how it is, but yeah, kind of.
but yeah, it's definitely like a personality shift, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to be someone else when you have to be the person who's gonna enforce certain things, or just like have a standard, or keep things rolling, and you're often like not liked or whatever. Like he said, you guys know how it is, but he's more gentle sometimes too, which is like balances it out. But like you always have to like go back and forth.
Of course,
She's a bad guy.
But she makes me out to be the bad guy, so I have to be the bad guy.
That's so funny because I was always the bad guy, and I hated it because I wasn't used to not being liked.
Yeah.
Right. And so as soon as you step into the leadership role, there are certain rules, and every single person that we ever hired always tested out the waters.
Yeah.
Right. And they always want to push to see, okay, how far can I go? How flexible are they with the rules? And so over time, I've learned that it's like, no, like these are the rules, and reinforce them. And so he was always so easygoing, and then that just left me to be like the bad cop who's always fun, and they call because it's like he's like the fun guy. He's like the good boss.
I think it's, and I could respond to that because it's like I think being like an artist and being a creative on the floor with the creative team, the barbers, you want to have that happy, enjoyable feeling. So sometimes when it's like, if you want to, you don't want to cross the line, I would kind of like pass the basketball to you and be like, hey Marina, handle this part because you had your strengths in that area. Where I had the strengths on the floor with the people and being around the people.
Yeah, so you guys can definitely relate. I think that's like the perfect balance, because you can't have like two good cops and two bad cops either.
Absolutely.
Because then it's like everything just kind of goes to shit, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
as long as like you kind of have a little bit of both, I feel like it's needed. It's needed,
course, yeah.
and it's like absolutely necessary for you to keep everything in harmony.
Yeah, absolutely.
100% agree.
Yeah.
It just sucks being the bad spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of weight could fall on your shoulders when you're the bad. Like, people look at you as like the enemy or like you're the bad
Yeah.
cop. But at the same time, you need that yin and yang, right? So I
Yeah,
think that's why we complement each other, and same with you guys, right? You guys know your strengths,
Yeah.
and you guys stick to it, right?
It
So
makes you stronger as a person
Yeah.
too. I feel like you can relate, even in your own life.
Yeah.
You can relate, like just being someone like that has to be the decision maker and what's
Yeah.
friend with like different personalities and situations. Like it helps you grow, right? But
course,
it's just,
yeah.
like, you have to remember that that's like one side of you, and like the people that love you and really like have that connection with you, they really know.
I think there's an important point that for everybody watching, they should like take note of this point, and it's because like, so these are the people that we're talking about that have already been in your establishment to make that decision on you're the bad cop, you're the good cop. If there was no good or bad cop, they wouldn't even be in that establishment, because if it was all good, then everything is going to be like not organized, for example, or if it's all bad, then everything's always negative. So if it wasn't for that, the people that are saying these things, they wouldn't even be in that environment if it wasn't for that. So I think like after somebody experiences that and then they look out in the bigger picture, somebody who's like, you know, more mature or like have more of like an entrepreneurial like mindset would start to see and understand that like, well, that was actually necessary, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't even step in an environment like that, you know.
Oh, for
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah. Whenever we had someone join our team, the number one thing I would say is like, wow, you guys are so like organized, so professional. And it's like, oh, I love that you guys have rules, because all the other shops or businesses you go to, there's no rules.
Yeah.
Come and go whenever, treat
Yeah.
clients however you want, and then
Yeah.
it's like you're working at like a mediocre establishment, which nobody wants to be at, right? If
Yeah.
you want to be the best, you have to function
Mhm.
like the best, and
Yeah.
you know that means like following the rules and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, like, it's all about your culture too when you're opening a business. Like, if you have a culture that you want to stand by and like things that are important to you, morals, ethics, and that's what enforces that type of structure, right? But a lot of shops, they don't. It's more just like kind of do your
How did you guys create your culture, and what's your culture like if someone joins the team?
I felt like that at the beginning, it was something that was like, it took some time to kind of land on exactly like what that was, because like when you first start, it's like everybody's like new, even the people that started the business, they're also like new with it, right? So I think it took some time to kind of like settle in with like, because the culture is not only like what you feel like as an individual of what it should be. It's kind of like you taking into account the people that come in, even if they're employees or customers, the demographics, and then kind of like over the years as a collective and seeing like, what kind of people show up at your door, then it started to kind of shape on how like we should run things and how things should be, because at the end of the day, that culture is really to support the people that are coming into your business at the end of the day. Because if that's never in mind, there's no point of you having a business, because these are the people that pay your bills and, you know, give you that recurring income, right? So it wasn't until after we started to see like a pattern of what kind of people come in that we started to have like a specific culture and start to see that certain things were just automatically not appropriate. So for example, we have a lot of like businessmen and entrepreneurs that come in, and because of how we've been running our business, we have people that come in that are like literally infants to people who are like in their like 60s, like older. So then automatically like things like maybe music with swearing, or like dressing, going to work with like shorts and slippers, as we see like in other shops, it's cool, it's casual, and it's very comfy. But if that works for your culture, over here, for example, like we can't really swing with that, because I mean, we might have like your dad might come in, and it's like, imagine, you know, somebody was cutting their hair with like rap music, swearing, and you're just wearing slippers at work.
Of course, yeah.
Your dad might think it's kind of disrespectful.
Yeah.
Maybe. Somebody who's more conservative, like our parents. And then, you know, so you kind of have to find what that balance was that would kind of be good for everyone.
Yeah.
And we found that by, you know, really looking into like customer service and seeing what people like, and who's coming in, and then catering to that kind of demographic of people.
That's such a good point, because we had 2 locations and 2 had completely different cultures. So one is in Clarkson Village, so that was all family oriented, very like upscale area. There was no swearing.
Yeah.
And then we have Queen Street where it's like fashion district, bars, and the whole music was swearing. It was loud, and that's what people wanted, right? So it's so interesting that you say that, because even though you have one type of business, it doesn't mean the culture is going to be the same all across.
Yeah, you have to like, I think that's how it would even fail, because if you just like, okay, I'm going to have one culture, that's it, no matter what city, what country, whatever, it may not work in other areas. So I think like you have to be like water, like flexible, you know, depending on what kind of cup you have, what kind of water's coming in, right? And you kind of have to kind of mold it to your environment. And I think that would always work if you do it like that way.
And so the number one question that everybody usually asks when they come across someone who's a couple who are running a business together is, don't you guys ever get tired of each other? Aren't you sick of each other? So can you talk about that a little bit?
Okay, I'll tell you what I feel, and then she can tell you what she feels.
It's like a therapy session. Counseling.
Honestly, because we, so for one, the reason why it works in the first place is because we both take our jobs like very seriously. We both take our roles very seriously, and upkeeping like the standard and the quality of our business, right? So that's the first thing that makes it work. After that, because we have step one in mind, during work we actually don't really have a lot of time to conversate and to hang out with each other. So I guess in its ways, like I actually like miss her at work when she's standing like just over there, because we don't get to, we're dealing with our own roles within the business. So I think like in that way, it's a beautiful thing, because even though usually we associate that with like somebody physically being beside you or not, and then this was like the first time where it was kind of like, even though she's physically there, our minds are so like occupied with doing or thinking about certain things. It's like at the end of the day, it's like, it's kind of like no difference than you calling your girlfriend or your wife at the end of your work day with separate jobs, like, hey, what are you doing right now? Like, we want to hang out. So we'll like make plans and like try to make sure we be able to still go and do that, because we want to during that day. And of course, like there's certain days that are ups and downs, just like anything. You forget even being in a relationship, even you going to your job, your work, you're going to have days that you're going to have a good time and days that you're going to have a bad time. And then when that happens, it's just you keep in mind, what's your overall goal? If my overall goal is to achieve this, then it really doesn't dictate, right? Like it's how you feel, it's not going to dictate how you perform. You know, so we try to always remind ourselves of that so that we keep our performance consistent, regardless of if you're happy or if you're sad or if you're mad or whatever. And then when that happens, what's great is just having like a good communication channel open, so that we understand that, like, okay, you know, Francis, you're going through a bad day right now. That's cool. Like I had that last week or I had that last month, you know, and then maybe give it some time to understand maybe why they're feeling that way. Oh, it's maybe something at home, maybe something with your kids, maybe something, who knows, everybody's going through something. So as long as you kind of have that respect in mind, you kind of apply that not to only your spouse, but to everyone, you know? And then that's kind of how you kind of try to balance this stuff. It's like, yeah, this barber or employee so-and-so is usually they're pretty good, but right now, or this time, like what is it? What is it about that? And just trying to understand that at the very least gives you guys an even ground, you know, and that's just relationship advice in general, whether it's with your friend, with just an employee, with your spouse, or with whoever, and just keeping that open. It always works itself out if both sides want it.
What about you? Do you ever get sick of Benson?
No, I don't get sick of him, because like what you said, like we're so busy throughout the day, and sometimes like he'll be traveling, or like I'll be traveling, or I'll be away, or he'll be away. So we both have like very busy careers. Even though like we run a business together, like he still has a lot of things that he does like for his own like separate like role as like Bikes and Hedges, and I also have my own as like Miss Victoria. So it's good because we get a really good dynamic. So we're not like always together every single day, like we're all doing different projects and different things. And what's like fun about it is that like you can go home and talk to yourselves and they'll know exactly what you're talking about, because you do the same thing, right? So it's like we're so busy, but we miss each other because we don't get to be like, hey, like, how's your day going? Like, we only get sometimes even have small talk because we're like, running around or like have other things, deadlines and stuff like that. So it's really nice because when everything like settles down at the end of the day, like, you have that like companionship and that partnership with someone that you can like feel like you're still connected to them, even though like you've been doing so many different things. So I think it's like really healthy for us too. And we also are like really busy with other things that we both want to achieve like individually in our own career. So it gives us like a really good dynamic, even though we're like with each other all the day, right? So it's still like a really good like energy to have, because it's something that's like a consistent thing, because you always have like a partner there that you can relate to or talk to about your day. So it's like really special, because you can't like someone that doesn't do or know what you do, if you go home and, you know, like everyone has like different like roles if their careers are not aligned, right? So it's sometimes like you can feel like they're leading different lives in bed, like outside of their relationship or like things going on at home, and then like when they come home they may not be able to like unload what that day was like for them, or like how they're feeling, and then still feel connected with their partner.
I read a statistic somewhere where if you work or have a business with your spouse, your chances of getting a divorce is 6%. Because you guys are so alike and like you guys are on the same
Oh, so way less than if you didn't have it.
way less. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's like
I would have thought it was the other way around.
No, it's actually the opposite, because not only are you guys aligned in personal lives, but you guys understand each other, unlike the full other part that most people don't, right? So to me now, I can't even, because going back to when we used to date, right, I had my own separate life of like going to school and getting a corporate job, and he had his own life. And then, you know, for the other like small percentage of the time, we would like go out and like party or go travel. And now our entire lives are so like in sync, right? Where if he says something or he doesn't even have to say anything, I get it, right? And I feel like that connection and that goal together is like what is something so special, like you mentioned, right? Whereas I can't even imagine like still having different careers and coming home and him not being able to understand like my frustration with corporate politics, for example, is the worst thing in the world. And then it's like he will never understand that because he's never worked corporate, because he doesn't like corporate. And like vice versa. For example, if I didn't have my own business, I wouldn't know what he was talking about, right? And so like that disconnect is definitely sometimes like where people go separate ways, right? So I definitely believe that statistic for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting statistic.
There's so many people that I'm sure like people ask this all the time, like, how's it working with your spouse? Like, oh, I could never do it.
That's the
Because,
number
like,
one question.
every time, like most of my clients ask on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's almost like when I hear that question, to me, I'm like, how can you not? It's like, it's such a perk, it's such a benefit. You know what I mean? Because like even like you're just talking about disconnect, but what about the vice versa? Let's talk about the connect. Like even if I have a problem at work on the spot, I could have just gone an email and then just saw it while I'm working or creating something, and I know that right away I can bounce that off somebody who their advice is like I value greatly, because it's my spouse, and there's a reason why they're my spouse, because they're smart and they are able to help me with the stuff that I can't do, right? So I feel like that's like a great plus, because like maybe regular people, you gotta wait the whole day because you could even do it really quick. What if it was something really in depth? I couldn't, you know, and that was what kills me. What I really hated was when people say, yo, I gotta tell you something, but I'll tell you later. Like tonight. I gotta tell you something though, but I'll tell you tonight, you know? It's kind of like I get that kind of feeling because I wanna just talk, I need to know like how I can plan my next steps, or how I should go about this deal, or like, you know, this whatever I'm doing. But if she's right there, I can just, hey, you know, like, what do you think about this? Like, do you think it's a good idea, bad idea? And then she's like, no, horrible idea. Then I'm like, yeah, I thought so anyways. So like, I'm not even stressed about it anyways, right? Whereas you have to wait the whole day and be like, hey babe, I gotta talk to you about something later, you know, like make sure you have some time later. I know I'm coming home late. You might be coming home late. Oh, but you gotta wake up early, you know? So like, it's kind of like, that's one of the major perks, I would say, in the connect on that.
Sometimes like he's coming from work and he'll call me to talk. And I'm like, I'm gonna see you in like 15 minutes. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Especially when you have like sometimes when we're in the shop and there's like clients and stuff too. Like
Yeah.
we like fully know what's gonna go on or like how
Yeah.
to do it. Like or something happens with a different employee or something
Yeah.
like that. It's like, did you see that? Like, oh yeah, it was right there. It's
Yeah.
just like awesome. It's really really cool.
So one of the things that I noticed with both of you guys, and I've worked with you separately and I've worked with you separately, is that you guys both have crazy work ethic. And it's so rare to find. And I'm not just like complimenting you, it's because I've literally gone through so many barbers. I worked with so many barbers over the years, and you guys are definitely like, I would say top 1% work ethic that
Wow.
I've ever come across.
That's a huge compliment. I never heard that before
the
ever.
reality, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why we're sitting down here, and we've known you guys for years. And can you talk about, let's say one of you didn't have the same work ethic, right?
I don't think it'll work out
Yeah.
immediately. Like, I don't even have to think about it.
Like even as individuals, like we're always focused on growth. And it could be like different areas of our life. It doesn't have to be like to do with like hair or like barbering. But I think just as individuals, we both have been like that even before we met each other. So that's I think why we complement each other so well, because like he has goals that are like a 10-year goal even, or like a 5-year goal. And so do I. I always have goals, so we always like push each other, even though like it has nothing to do with like me in that kind of world or him in my kind of world. So I think that was like something that was like a really good addition, because even like separately, you're both that way even before we met each other. So just, like, and we just and then like because we both like that competitive side of like chasing like certain goals, it also like kind of amps us up a little bit, because he'll talk to me about like his like jujitsu and stuff, right? Half the time I think it's amazing. Like what?
No, she doesn't. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. They call it sick, babe.
That I love like anyone who's like passionate about something. It could be like carpentry, or it could be like something nerdy even, but just like to have that like focus and goal towards chasing something, I think is like so admirable. Right? So if you always want to do that, it's like it's just amazing to see. And then if you both are like that too, then just keep like pumping each other up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely wouldn't work, because that's basically like what I'm like attracted to, you know, because like you know, like looks and whatever's on the surface is always temporary, right? Like what do you have after that's gone? So like some of those things are like obviously like your personality, work ethic, and stuff like that. So that's what's like really attractive to me. So if it wasn't for like the work ethic, it wouldn't we wouldn't have that kind of connection, you know, because like I look for that in my partner, because if they have it, they're pushing me to do something, which is what I want, and then vice versa. We kind of like, that's how we end up pushing each other. If one person has more of the work ethic than the other, then like the one person is going to be annoyed of the other, because they're always going to feel like, oh, you're not doing enough. Because I don't care about the result per se or how long it takes. I care more about like the effort that you're putting in towards getting what you want, and I think that is attractive, you know. And I started to learn that a lot in my life, like in other parts of my life, where like it doesn't matter how long you take per se to do something, as long as you're consistently growing. So even if you're getting better by like 1%, a 0.1%, depending on what level of growth or how difficult the task is. So, you know, everybody has different learning curves and different ways, like speed of accomplishing things. So I don't think you should ever judge anybody based on that, but based on like how much effort, because that's like a sign of respect to yourself and everybody around you. So as long as they like, I think that's like so attractive to me. So I think that as long as we have that, and I don't see that ever dying, then it doesn't really matter how old we are, how we look, and stuff like that, because it's always going to be something that I'm attracted to her for.
So how do you guys deal with like work-life balance?
So we both are very committed to like our own personal goals. So because we have that, we have like clear boundaries on like what's important to us and like when to kind of push and pull back, because we both like have things outside of like our careers that we want to chase, that we want to like improve on. So it's good that like we both have that, so we both respect each other. Like when he has to go to bed like really early for something, or I have to go to bed really early, then we both like agree because we know that the importance of it is so much more than just like spending time with each other. So it's a good like balance for us because we're both chasing something, and even though like it's not together, we still both have like the love because we have that love for the things that we want to do specifically, so that it kind of like balances out really nicely. We know like when to put our time, when we can have it or we can't have it. We don't get like upset about it. It's like, it's all good, and we're both happy because those things that we're chasing is also like equally as important to us as like each other, so that it's kind of like we just know, and it's just like, all right, cool, like we gotta go, like I'll see you later, and it's just like we both see each other growing too, and like what we're both trying to do, so that it's kind of like you're cheering on the sidelines from far. It's like, oh, like I'm so proud of him, like he's like actually chasing the something, or he's doing something that he wants to do to better himself, even though it doesn't mean like staying home chilling and like having more time to just like be a potato, even though like we're so tired and we like have so much going on, we still like we'll do all those things being so tired, and that's why like we like have a love for each other, because it doesn't matter like how tired we are, we're still like, no, like we have to do this, like, we have to like 1%, like we just gotta get a little bit better. So it's like,
Great.
it's pretty awesome.
I think how anybody gets like work-life balance would be to like first have like a certain mindset on how like you want your lifestyle to be, right? So there's certain things that we've like accepted, and there's no exceptions for, regardless on like how you feel, what kind of mood you're in, and stuff like that. So then what forces us to keep a work-life balance is having that mindset. So for example, one of the things that we have like as our mindset is that we exercising, for example, is like brushing your teeth. So if you're having a bad day, you're still gonna brush your teeth, I hope, right? So, so those are some of the things that we instilled like in our bones. So it's like no matter like how you feel, even if you're tired, as Francis, you know, I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna do 10 minutes because it's better than no minutes.
Of course.
Right? So as long as like we kind of always have that in mind, so then automatically we know that, okay, I can't work like 18 hours a day because no matter what, I have to exercise. And if I have to exercise, I have to eat a certain amount of food, I have to get a certain amount of rest. So then when, and I always like give this advice to people, because whenever you're trying to grow anything, like whether even it's like a skill or it's like a business or anything that requires growth, requires consistency. And that's the only way to grow, is to do things. Yeah, it's actually very mundane, very boring. And I learned a lot of these philosophies from studying martial arts. And like, as long as you understand that and you accepted that, then it's like, you're not really feeling like, oh, I'm missing out on stuff, because you've already have the mindset where like, I need to do this for the next 10 years. That's the only way I'm gonna get it. The only way I'm gonna get it is if I have this balance of work, training, eating, and sleeping. And if you really focus those things, those are the main things that you really need to focus on in your life, whether it's for your kids, whether it's for yourself. Everybody kind of needs that balance. It's just their work might be a little bit different based on their age, but they still got to eat, they still got to sleep, they still got to exercise. So as long as you prioritize those things, which everybody should be, it already kind of shapes what your lifestyle is going to be like, as long as you accept those things. It's the people that don't really focus on those things, like those most core things that you need to, is when they start to get out of a work-life balance, because it's like, okay, I don't really care about eating properly. I'll just have a coffee in the morning and I'll have my first meal at night. So then that goes to eating out the door. I want to make money and I don't really care about the sleeping. I'll just do all-nighters. Okay, well, there goes your sleep. So you see right away, your work-life balance is going out of whack, because you're not respecting the certain things that you need for your body to perform well. And that goes back to like the diet, the eating, the working, and then the time to rest. And our rest time, that's our chill time. When I'm too tired to do work, when I'm too tired to keep training and stuff like that, that's when you've earned kind of like your chill period, right? So just keeping these kind of philosophies like strong, and going deeper, what pushes us to keep within that lifestyle is because I actually want my kids to live that kind of lifestyle. I want them to focus always from birth, exercise in any way, shape, or form. It could be crawling 100 miles an hour, I don't care what it is, but we got to do something all the time. So then automatically that's always going to shape some sort of balance in your life, as long as health is your priority, because it doesn't matter how successful you are, doesn't matter how good of a skill that you can build and whatever. If you're not healthy you're not going to be around to share it, to enjoy it, to all these things. So it's really just thinking more logically and simplifying. Marina, like you were saying, that's what it comes down to. Simplify. What is it that you really need to succeed? Like, and let's be realistic about it and educated about it. If you're not educated about it, then we can't blame you. But you can get educated and learn about it and why, you know, you should live a certain way and do certain things. So like we just came back from Mexico, for example. We picked the trip based on the gym. The resort that we went to was strictly because of the gym that they had. And like, you know, because that's what we care about. And our clients are like, yo, what's wrong? You guys are losers. You go on a vacation and you guys are trying to work out and do work. It's like, no, this is how we enjoy our life, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
When I'm here, we don't get to work. Vic was having a blast in the gym. She was doing twice a day. Nobody was in the gym. It was such a beautiful gym. And it's not like your every day where we have to like kind of rush, get to work, get our meals in, you know, and perform at work, right? So that's our lifestyle. That's what I do, whether I'm at home, whether I'm in the Caribbean on the side of the beach. I'm still going to be eating, resting, training, working my mind in some way, shape, or form, you know? So then when you have that kind of mindset, no matter where you are in your life, no matter what you're doing, you're going to find a way to find balance if you prioritize the stuff that's supposed to help you grow. Yeah, but like I like to share that because it's not like I made that up. I learned it from other people that mentored me. That, you know, and that's why, like, you know, through that, then it doesn't matter what. Because like I'll share like a story. Like last year, I got surgery on my knee and I was actually in a wheelchair. I couldn't even friggin' walk, right? But then because of that mindset, no matter what it felt like, even though it didn't work, I knew that I have to exercise some way, shape, or form. If it was just me like learning how to walk, that's my exercise. So it was that kind of mindset that got me back to like coming back to work quickly, going back to doing what I love to do quickly without feeling so depressed and so sad, because I understand that it takes time and it's a journey and nothing happens overnight. So although it felt physically really bad at the time, my spirits were really high. I'm like, I know I'm going to get there. I know this is what I have to do, no matter what. Even if I had no legs, I still have to exercise. You know, these are the certain things that I've accepted. And because Vic is also on that same mindset, there's not a lot of conflict at all, because we both understand that. And if she wasn't like that and I wasn't like that, we wouldn't even be together, you know? So because we're both equally there in respects for like what goals that she wants and what goals that I want, we understand each other's needs, and we know that there's certain things that we have to do that take up most of our life for the better goal, for the bigger picture.
Great. And so something that you mentioned is like so important, which brings me to a point where one of the most important decisions you will ever make in your entire life is choosing the partner that you're going to spend the rest of your life, right? And it definitely seems like, well, for sure you guys chose the right person because you're on the same level. And so many times I find that people settle, right? Again, like you're cooking him some nice meals. Like every time I look at your Instagram feed, I'm like, you lucky bastard, Benson. I have to be in the kitchen trying to like see what's healthy, right? So I could definitely see you guys on the same page, complementing each other, supporting each other, and it's so important. And there's so many relationships that I've seen, whether it's my friends or whatever, they settle, keep complaining about the other person nags, doesn't respect the other person's growth, or if what usually happens, why people grow apart, is one person tends to grow and then the other one stagnates, and then now they're insecure and they try to bring this person down, right? What advice would you give someone who is in that position?
Yeah, I would say, I feel like people settle because they don't love themselves enough. And I feel like that type of love can be different for anyone. But I feel like if you're willing to accept that based into the situation and you're okay with it, then you don't love whatever it is that you really want more, because you're willing to just be like, okay, like I'm good with this, like this is status quo and like it's easy. But like I feel like to have a certain type of partner, you also need to be on that same level yourself. Like if you for example, like if someone wants someone to be that person that's motivating them, pushing them, they're successful, like whatever it is, they also need to like have that same respect and love for themselves. And then I feel like if you have that, you won't really end up like being stuck in a situation, because you value yourself at that level to know that I've gotten what I needed from this. It's clearly like not what I want as I evolve, and like evolving is more important to me than like settling in a certain situation, because it's hard, right? And I feel like that's why a lot of people settle for this. It's just like it's too hard to give up, or it's too hard to like start over, or you know, to like reset. It's too much for me. But I feel like that's where you have to like really look to yourself and be like, what's really important to you, what makes you happy. Because even for someone from me, like I just lost my dad like recently, like my whole perspective changed on life. And like you only have one life, you only have like one breath, one heart, right, one like physical being here. So if you're gonna wake up every day, whether it's like a job that you're settling for, or relationship, or just like something within yourself, and like that's something that you need to look for inside yourself to change that, and pull that person out of there, so you can get yourself to where you really want to be. So I feel like it's really about how much you love yourself, how much you respect yourself. And if you love yourself enough that much, you can have anything you want. Like you can, it's endless. And once you can tap into just, you know, that going through experiences of getting to know yourself, because like sometimes when you look back at the past decisions that we made really after, right? Even when it's like relationships, when we go, I can't believe like I even did that, or like I can't believe I allowed that to happen. But if you really think back on it now, it's like, oh, because I didn't know myself that well at that time, or I didn't love myself enough, or even like be aware of who I was at that time, right? So it's kind of like your decisions and what you settle for is based on like how much you know and love yourself. Then you continue to want to push through that, because nothing.
I guess the advice that I would give for somebody who is settled would be, now of course easier said than done, but to then unsettle. Easier said than done, but find the strength to get out of that situation, because it's only going to get worse. Once you settle for something, you're going to settle for everything else in your life. So you're going to settle for like, you know, like literally everything else. And if you don't do that, it's just going to like lead to like resentment, or it's going to lead to like regret, and it's going to lead to all these negative things that's going to happen, that's going to ruin your relationship anyways. So you might as well do it early versus then later. And I would say be strong and accept those consequences you get for settling, because you shouldn't have done so in the first place. But hopefully that will kind of wake you up and be like, okay, well, this is what I get for settling. I get all this backlash that comes with it. So maybe in the future, you go back to what Vic said, you respect yourself a little bit more and be okay, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what I want to achieve, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts on achieving that. That would be, I guess, my harsh advice. You know, but what benefit's going to come from it? If you settle, then you continue to settle. You're just going to keep settling for everything else. So why don't we, we say nip it in the butt, you know what I mean, and just cut that off, and whatever those consequences are, that's what you get for settling. You know, so hopefully that would be like a wake-up call, or it wouldn't be so detrimental, will completely ruin your life, of course. But I would recommend that if you can find the strength to do so, to always do so earlier rather than later. And you will thank yourself for that in the long run, because it's not always about what's happening in the present. You know, we got to think big and think about how you're going to feel in the next 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And imagine how that's going to feel if you're feeling that now, and then 50 years from now you're still feeling the same. If you settle for that, chances are you probably settle for everything else in your life, and everything is going to be negative, you know.
That's another thing I talk about with my clients all the time. I always tell them like time is going to pass anyway. Like whether it's like if you're settling for like a job or a career or a relationship, or like you're wanting to chase a goal, they're always like, oh, but you know, like it seems so like monumental at the time, but then time is going to pass whether you start today or you're going to start for 10 years. It's still going to happen. So like what's the point in waiting?
If you have somebody who is like not on the same level as you, and like one is growing more and the other one is not as much, that is where you really need to take it like the most serious. So like and like this is why I love like certain things I do outside of work, because it teaches me about life, right? So like in jiu-jitsu, for example, it teaches you like, you know how like they always say like in martial arts you shouldn't like use your strength, you should try to use your technique and whatever. So they teach me that like you use your strength before the position gets really, really bad. You use your strength then. Don't wait till you're totally dominated and then you try to use your strength. It's too late. So what I'm trying to relate to this situation is that be strong in the beginning. If there's something that you guys are not on par with in terms of like work ethic, in terms of like personality, in terms of like all these things, the secret that I'll tell you guys is that that's actually what kept Vic and I together. Is because of course, like everybody, every relationship, it goes through hard times and there's like good times, but there's also a lot of hard times. Unfortunately, this is just normal part of the relationship. But because of us being on the same level and still having that equal drive to achieve something, that is what actually kept us together in those hard times, was by having that. And if we didn't have that, one of us would have been like, okay, well, fuck it. Or I'm gonna settle because, you know, whatever, right? And then it's only gonna get worse from there. So.
Yeah, I cannot imagine, because we've gone through so many like ups and downs, obviously, just like any couple or anyone who has a business. I cannot imagine having a partner who would crumble under pressure.
Exactly.
We would not be together.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I totally agree with what you're saying, right? Where it's like you have to have the right partner, and when times get rough, you guys are on the same page and you support each other, help each other. You guys have like long-term vision, pass through this like hard period, right? Whereas so many people I just see like under pressure or like have this big talk, and then when it's time to do, it's like crickets. Right? So
when I'm like standing strong in the beginning of the relationship, when I'm looking for my partner, that's one thing that I was looking for. I'm looking for somebody who is actually chasing that pressure, chasing that uncomfortable, you know, like I want to be in that all the time because, you know, as cliche as it sounds, you know, pressure builds diamonds, right? People always say that, and because it's true. So that was like a characteristic that I look for. It's like, okay, this person's always like throwing himself into the fire. Like, why? Like, this is crazy. It's such a nice thing to see. So when you, if you're like that, like that's how I am. I always like to challenge myself and put myself under like crazy pressure, even though I'm gonna fail. I actually try to ride that line like just before like I explode. That's where I want to be, you know. And then I was lucky enough to where I found somebody who's equally like that. So then when these bad things happen, like we know that we're both used to or wanting to be in those situations, even though we obviously don't it doesn't feel good. But we understand that after that, you rise from the ashes and there's a phoenix that comes out of that, you know. So that is what like really helped us with our relationship.
So we have to be like super realistic. It's not all like good and all that stuff. What are some of the bad things about being partners in business as well as in real life?
Well, right off the bat, what's obvious is that like as much as you want to say like, you know, we try to separate personal from business, it's very hard to do that depending on the situation that you may have going on in your life, right? So definitely that would be like something that it's inevitable, because some things are just that bad where like it really does like affect, and then that makes like work really difficult when you have like, you know, two people disagreeing on something, or maybe like somebody's going through something really hard, because it's easier when nobody knows about it and you can just go to work and shut everybody out and just do your work, right? The pro side of that is that like, you know, you have somebody where you can share that and address that with right away. But when they're not ready for that, that's the con in that, is that it's obviously uncomfortable periods, you know, being in the same room with somebody when you guys are both going through a hard time is obviously very difficult. For example, what Vic was saying, like how she lost her father. You know, people have different ways with dealing with like death and coping with all the logistics that come with the passing of somebody, as you may or may not know, you know, like just like financial stuff or like family dramas, and these kind of things always happen. So when she was dealing with her own things, like that obviously can affect how you perform in certain ways, right? So like you just have to be like you learn how to be accepting of that, and that's what I talked about in the beginning of the podcast, was that like, you know, having both parties the chance to understand each other, and then try to make that, you know, work. But that understanding each other part is hard. It takes a lot of time, and that's what I would say would be probably the most difficult part. But luckily, because we are the stuff that we talked about before, it has to be so bad for us to go through that, and we barely go through that. But we understand that when it happens, as uncomfortable as we are, we know deep in our mind that, okay, this is going to make us a little bit better, because that's just the way we are, and that's just the way that we're wired, and we always look at things like that, right? So
I would say, like, to add to that, like, to keep it real, it seems to be like difficult to like have a, I guess, in a traditional relationship, because like you have so many things that's involved that are bigger than, I feel like, your relationship, that you kind of have to like try to find time to like dedicate towards that relationship things, because a lot of times it's often blurred, right? Because like your day consists of like 90% of what's going on in your business, and you have like 10% left some days like for your relationship, right? So understanding that, you know, like it's not always gonna be, you know, like all like happy when they come home, or like, you know, their days gonna be perfect, because like you have something that you're running together, and it's like your kid, you know, you have to like dedicate like all of your time and effort into it. And even on the days that you don't feel like it, or you're not up for it, or you're tired, or you have other things going on, and like you have to remember that like that's a pressure that's not meant for everybody. Because for someone who is not like used to, you know, having like different tasks, and then like trying to deal with like asking about their relationship and their career, and like they feel like everything gets muddled, that's where you're gonna be like, okay, maybe this is not the best route for me, because like the lines will get blurred most of the time, because you have so many things going on in your relationship. So I'd say like that's one of the things that is like real, like when it comes to like running a business with your partner, because you don't have like the time to do what you want when you want with your partner. It's more of like when you find the time, and then also like time to disconnect from your work, because like 85% of what you talk about is like all around like work and business and like our entrepreneurship, right? So you have to remember that like that's a big part of your life, and then trying to, I guess, have that like so like quote unquote like balance your relationship, to be like, okay, like that's work now, and like let's try to enjoy like quality time with each other, not talking about things like your employees or something that's coming up, or like the day that you had, and just trying to connect with each other again, because it's often like where most of the time.
So what are some of like the biggest like victories and memories you guys have working together that kind of stick in your mind?
I guess like it's like looking back now, it's like really nostalgic to see like the first events we ever did, like our first barber battles, like we did together. Like that was really cool. When we did like, we won like tag team terminology like a few years ago.
that was cool. We won that on my birthday.
Wow.
And that was our first competition we won together.
Yeah, and that was like really fun, because like we both like, I think the first time we ever met was at a barber competition.
Okay,
Saga. Like, it was like that. I don't know if you guys remember, it was at like UFT or something, and it was like Barbershop Connect was there.
Blurry Fades?
No. It was before that. It was before that. It was a GTA Barber Battle.
Oh yeah, with
Chad. Chad ran it?
Chad and Iconic, right? Was it no?
I think so. Something like that. It was a long time ago.
Okay, yeah.
We were like kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like looking back, like that was our first barber battle that we did together. We won together, so that was like really cool, just to like have that with your partner, because we both just get in this like zone where we create each other, and because like we both have like styling and barbering, it's like we're able to create like such unique looks together, and it's kind of like we do it on the fly. Like we never really take a lot of time to like prep when we do things together.
Yeah.
We just kind of like go in and like we're just natural, and it's just like so much fun. So we had like few barber battles that we did together.
Can you describe like what that haircut looked? Because I'm trying to think about like what kind of like hair barbering side to it, and then the hairstyling side.
So we did. He's like more of the design. I suck at drawing. Like don't I can't draw.
So then this is like where our strengths would kick in, right? So then I would have the vision, right? Or like she would help me with the vision, but like I would solidify the vision. So then how it works is that like we wouldn't really go in and wing like our own thing. So we would collectively come up with like a look that we want to show.
Yeah.
Like literally like down to like how the color is and how the cut is and everything. And then we distribute roles on how we achieve that look. So then it's like, okay, Vic's strength is like the color and the cutting. So then within that time frame that we set aside, we would have, just like work, just like business, just like anything else, nothing changes. We distribute the roles, and then we find an efficient way to achieve that goal. And then that's pretty much for like everything that we do, whether it's on a haircut or like doing a business move or anything like that. that's kind of like how you usually go about it.
Yeah, we did that really cool look in Connecticut because she had like longer hair on the top, and then Benson kind of did like a design on the side, and then we got this custom jeweled out mask that we added onto it because that like barber battle was insane. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Connecticut.
Yeah, I've been there. It's
Yeah.
huge. The biggest one, yeah.
So we put on like a showcase, and that was like one of the most like fun looks we ever did together. 'Cause
Yeah, that was
got
cool.
Really creative, and like we went all out with like their props and like the cape. And we did like
Yeah.
the whole like shebang. It was really cool.
How many years ago was this? Because
That was a long time
A long
ago.
time ago.
Maybe like 6 years ago.
That was probably 2019,
2019. Okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
2018, 2019.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
It's awesome.
What was the biggest challenge you guys had to overcome thus far?
I guess it goes back to one of the first questions that you asked was like, what was your culture? Like, how did you solidify your culture? And then one of the biggest challenges was to kind of like stand by that, because when you go about it with just observing like how your demographic is and stuff, so then you're always kind of changing it, right? So after you kind of figure out what that is, then it's like to stand by it without continuously changing it all the time, because then it would just kind of get saturated. So I think that was one of the biggest challenges, was to see like, and then it was also like to accept that everybody coming in through the door is not necessarily going to be able to meet that culture or that standard or whatever you're trying to uphold here. And that was like a big challenge, because like you kind of always get caught in the mindset where it's like, okay, am I being like a bad business owner, or is it just because like I'm just enforcing the right rules for the place to be ran like a certain way, or for like a certain standard to be to be kept going, you know? So I think that was like a really big challenge, was to really like stand strong on your foot and be like, okay, look, this person just has to go, because they're literally like they're not cutting it.
Gotcha,
Or like
yeah.
I'm not gonna keep trying to ask him to do something that's so, in my eyes, so basic of a standard of operating, where it's like if I have to keep reminding you of it, obviously you don't have the culture, the personality, and whatever to operate in that way. But then that's always difficult, because then it's like you have your staff that, and sometimes it's not even about the money, because yes, they could be a good artist and they could be like bring in like decent money, but then it's like, but your attitude and your culture and stuff like that, it's actually ruining it for everyone. Because you know, people might get a negative vibe, or people might get a bad, you know, example of how they should behave. So that was definitely one of the biggest challenges, was to really just kind of put your foot down and be like, okay, you know what, I don't think this person is going to work out, or I can see that, you know, we can potentially get this person will potentially become kind of like what we're trying to uphold here and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think for me that was something that was very difficult for me. How about you?
What's like a red flag? Because everyone is, well, most people are good at kind of like putting up a front for the first
Oh, yeah.
month or two.
They're always the
right?
best at
And
the
then
beginning.
Eventually the mask falls off, and then you see the real character inside. And so what are some of the red flags for a business owner when it comes to like having great employees and having red flags? Like, what are those red flags to watch out for?
I feel like work ethic is like.
I was just gonna say,
I mean, like
anybody
that-
who couldn't upkeep with like the work
like,
ethic.
Even just on like a.
I mean, you guys
like.
have 1%.
I know, but
That's fine.
Like, not
Yeah.
compared to like us, but
Yeah.
I'm saying like just in terms of like even just respecting yourself. Like if you don't have like a work ethic that at least you can like even just a basic structure. So what that is, like you can't even go any further than that. So that would be like in the beginning they would always be great, you know, like be on time, or they'd be prompt or really good with customers, and then slowly you really start to see in their own personal life if they apply those same morals, those ethics, those structures. Then for me at least I would be like, okay, this person is gonna work out here because like they have things that are important to them, and it's sort of like a code that they kind of live by, even if it's just like something that's very basic, right? Consistency I think is like the most attractive thing that you
Yeah.
can have with an employee, and someone who's inconsistent is 100%
Yeah.
red flag, like right off the
Yeah,
bat.
even if they consistently sucked,
Yeah.
but they knew that they did and they were working on like making it better, I actually respect that, and I would work with that every day. but it's like it's when they're not consistent. It's like, oh, I'm good, I'm amazing sometimes, and then sometimes you're just so bad, and it's always just like, you know, up and down, you know.
And their mindset is like negative, pessimistic, entitled. You know, like I'm sure you guys see it too, like having the barbershop, like there's barbers that want to come in and they kind of want their cake in a bit too, right? But like you understand that like it takes time. Like you need to take time to dedicate towards something. But now it's so simple. Like social media is such a big like culture in our industry that everyone thinks like, oh, I can just go up and I can just do this and like I'll be good, right? But then like you have people that you wanna actually come in to actually like want to learn about the craft and perfect their skills, and then you have the others that are just like, oh, I just want to be there for like the credibility, or I just want that kind of name just because like I'm here, I'm doing something certain, but not making the time to actually perfect something that you're doing every day.
How do you guys solve a problem that you disagree on?
Pretty simple, actually. Like so we just create a T-chart of pros and cons for every situation. Whether it's verbally, whether it's like physically on a piece of paper, because then that way it's black and white and it's not about what you feel. So then we would like, we sit down and collectively we'll even like come up with a statement of what the problem is. Okay, Marina is mad at me right now. Okay, now it's like, okay, so now it's like, okay, what, yeah, so then it's like, okay, what did we do? Then you did all this stuff. What did Marina do? She didn't really do anything. So then it's like, even though I feel that I'm right, the facts are right there, you know? So we always try to address everything kind of like in that way, where kind of like a clear, and that just comes down to your communication skills, how you can gather up like what you really feel the problem is, or what do you feel that like what's important to talk about. So I guess in short, we kind of just do it like that way. We put in a T-chart, pros and cons, and then regardless of like what you feel like, if the pros will outweigh the cons, that's the decision that we're going to make, even though it may not be something that you feel at the time that is right. So it's really about finding like the truth or the fact, right? So and then that's where the work ethic comes in, because if you do your due diligence, you do the work and you look into the problem and you really dive into that, it should be very clear as to why you should go ahead with certain things or why you shouldn't go ahead with certain things. And that usually kind of like answers everything for us. So it's like we don't really have to fight about it or argue about it, because everything is on paper, black and white. Usually when that happens, it's because one or the other is not fully aware of the situation, or don't have all the specifics of the situation. Because if you did, and if you're like decently smart, or like, you know, just like think logically, you'll see that, okay, like this obviously doesn't make sense, or this makes sense, and then that's the way that we always go about it. And I think that it has been working out so far, I think. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I never heard about that trick, but that's a good one.
Yeah.
We'll try next time.
Yeah, so I actually learned it from my dad, and he calls it sharpen the pencil. And he usually uses that expression when we're doing like financial like decisions on like, oh, I feel like I want to like move here and do this. He's like, okay, let's sharpen the pencil. How much you make? How much you're gonna make doing this? How much does it cost going there? So these are the pros and the cons that we're talking about, right? So then I kind of we took that philosophy and we just applied it to everything, and it works.
That's great.
Yeah. So and it just gives you a good idea of like, okay, what are we looking at here as a whole? You know, jot down what's important, what's not, or doesn't matter. We kind of take out and then just look at the facts, and then from there it makes the conversation a lot easier. Yeah. No ifs, ands, or buts. It is what it is, and then we go from there.
Great. Yeah. So what advice would you guys give to like other couples that are starting their business, like a business up together?
I would say first you have to, I guess, establish if like you both have a good work ethic, right? Like that's like first and foremost, because if you don't, like you're never going to be able to run a business together. Identify like the strengths and weaknesses. I know that will come in time as like if you decide to get into business with each other. And then delegate roles would be like the main thing, because like, so if like both people are doing the same role, then everything gets blurred, right? So like you definitely want to have like set boundaries of like with who takes care of what, just so it's like more organized, and then it doesn't affect like your relationship, right? Because that's like the worst thing is like you decide to run a business with someone, but then like the relationship suffers because you guys don't have boundaries, or you guys are not understanding each other fully. So I feel like first get to know the person that you're going to run a business with, like in all areas before you start, because it'll save you a lot of time and it'll save you a lot of mistakes that you can avoid if you just, like Betsy said, like do your due diligence on like who that person is. And then if you guys like have similar interests and you're both passionate about something, then it'll be great, right? As long as you can like keep it more organized, I feel like in that sense, then it would be a good idea to run a business together. And also understand that it comes with the bad days too. Like it's not all like roses and rainbows when you're running a business. Sometimes, you know, like things get frustrated, you get frustrated, or you have things that are going on that they don't know about, or vice versa. And you kind of like got to give them their space. And sometimes it means like holding your tongue, or, you know, not picking like at things that you would normally pick at on that day, just out of respect for like your partner, like whatever it is that they're going through outside of work. Even though you run a business together, remember that, you know, like you're both human first, and that like your relationship comes and then your business comes after that.
Yeah, I think one of the an advice that I would give for people who are like thinking of it is to really respect the other person for what they are and not try to change like too much. Obviously, like positive encouragement for certain things to make an individual a better person is normal, but to expect their strengths and their weaknesses, because then that's how you kind of start to like take leadership in certain roles. So okay, I understand that, for example, you're not the best like communicator, so then if I'm delivering a message to the staff, I'm going to be the spokesperson, you know, for example, like stuff like that. So I think if you can really respect what their strengths and their weaknesses are, then you can start to see that, okay, this business is going to work because I'm weak at so and so, and then you are strong at what I'm weak at. So it's almost the same as going like getting married to somebody. Usually, you know what I mean, like the other person helps you with what you have struggles with, and then vice versa, and that's what makes it work. So I think that just like sitting down and just seeing that, okay, we have an idea that we both agree on, obviously. Now it's like, okay, what can I bring to the table? And then what do you bring to the table, without me forcing you to bring those things to the table? And if that comes like naturally and it goes without force, then that's one of the a green flag that will show you that, okay, I think this is gonna work because it's kind of effortless. We both understand that, hey, I'm like really good at this, I'm gonna do this. And whoever is good at the other part is going to do that, and then together it kind of makes everything work. So I think that's the first thing they got to figure out, is that are they okay with their weaknesses, and if their weaknesses are like how bad are those weaknesses? You know, does it have to be improved a little bit more before we can, you know, go into it, so we're not totally like cut off on that end. So like things like that. I think it's just more like understanding.
Big component would be like, what's the vision? You know, like what's the reason we want to go into business together? If what are you trying to accomplish, whether it could be like something small or something really big. And then I feel like if they can answer, or if they have like a really good idea of what that is, I think it's kind of like a snowball. Do you know what I mean? And like kind of like everything will kind of like move along with each other, and then it can grow into like other things, or maybe other businesses, like kind of like you two, right? Like I'm sure like you guys had a goal, you know, in the beginning, like open up a shop, and then it became like more successful, and then you guys had like, oh, let's do an academy, and like let's get into this and let's get into that, right? It's like that's why you guys are also like really successful, because you guys both have like visions.
Actually, I like to give the credit where it's due. And a lot of our inspiration and positivity came from you guys as business owners, because, you know, we've been following you guys, and we kind of grew up together. Like I always tell our students that I teach at like academy, and I'm like, one of the reasons they're probably, because they always wonder, like, if you own your own studio, why are you like with these guys, right? And I always tell them, I said, because as we were growing, I've always seen them exactly where I was growing. If I went to a show to take a class, I saw Cadman there. We went wherever we went, we saw Cadman there. So we naturally, like I felt that growth between both parties. You know what I mean? So that was I got to give up to you guys, because like we always like, you know, we're like, wow, we learned a lot just being friends and hearing the stories, you know, like stuff about like how to like run a business. I always love watching Marina's like posts and stuff like that, and we. That's always something that helped us out a lot too. So thank you guys, you know, for setting the bar high. Yeah.
I was telling my friend yesterday too that you're actually, I don't know if you know this, but like you're actually like the only woman I really look up to. Like,
Yeah.
ever since like we go back like many years ago, I think before like I aligned you guys together, but you've always been like an inspiration to me because you're like things that I want to become one day. Like because
shut up, you're
I'm being
being
serious. I know, but like because we started at one point together and we like evolved our relationship and our growth, and I've seen you guys like come from where you were and then grow into something else. Like there's people, you know, that are out there that you can kind of relate to, but you don't know them, right? Or like you'll feel like you're watching their journey, but you don't know them. You've never like worked with them. So I feel like it was really special for me because when I left like Toronto and I was like in my barbering, I just aligned with you guys.
We have a lot of people that come in, but we don't have like a lot of available slots. So our slots are very limited here. So we always tell people like, if we can't cut your hair, Cadman is the only place I send them. Because like out of everybody in our industry, especially like locally here, like I would personally rate you guys top, you know what I mean? One of the top barbershops that I would actually send my guests to, you know, and there's a reason for that. And if I didn't feel that way, I would even, you know, we'd be partnered up with you guys. We would even be having this conversation, you know? So yeah, I always like to give credit where it's due, you know, and it's the friends around you that are like-minded is what helps us all grow. So I'm grateful to be in the circle.
Whenever we collaborate together and we have students, I never have to worry. Like there's certain people where we bring them on and I'm like literally I have anxiety because I'm like, okay, are they gonna come up with an excuse or whatever? Whenever it's like Benson, whenever like it was you that we work with, I just like I was at peace. I'm like I know no matter what happens, like they're gonna do their best, like you know, and just like that trust factor and vice versa is so invaluable when it comes to like having those types of relationships and growing and stuff, right?
And that goes both ways, and because of the respect that we have for you, is like when we do stuff like together, it's like I especially want to, I treat it like my own business, my own place, my own students, you know, so that's the way I go about it, and it's really strictly from the relationship that we have. It's like if you guys look bad, I also look bad, you know, and then vice versa. If I look bad, they're gonna look bad. So I see it like that as a family, you know what I mean? So I think that's maybe that's where that comes from. It's because like we truly want to put our best foot forward when we're working with people that are so close to us.
So what do you guys have planned for the next 5 years?
For the next, I guess like 5 to 10 years, you mean in terms of like personal or in terms of like the business?
Just like where do you guys see yourself, like, you know, where do you guys see yourself in the next 5, 10 years, like
in the next
business?
like 5 to 10 years, I really want to like expand the business more on like an e-commerce side, like less like both sides, e-commerce sides and like a physical expansion. But the physical expansion, we really want to work on like outside of Canada, you know, and like we really want to start building a life like that we can start to travel more and live like in other countries and experience the world a little bit more, versus being like stuck in Canada all the time, especially when it's cold, you know. And then like on the other side, like I really I had this dream and this goal from when I was like in my early, like maybe like 19, 20, and it was I wanted to equally do both like hair and something with like my martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So ideally I would want to have like, you know, like a shop, like a school, like an academy, and be like an instructor of both. And it's really more than just like for myself, like for like the jiu-jitsu and stuff. It's more like I'm doing that for the youth. I want to like have an academy and a school where I can bring the youth together in the community to give them like a positive influence, and give them like, you know, a good role model, like people who are good role models for them, people that may have grown up with like that are not as fortunate, you know, maybe their parents weren't around a lot, or they didn't grow up in the best areas and stuff like that. So I want to provide an environment where they can learn these crucial things for themselves as they're growing up. So that's kind of like what I've been working so hard on, you know, and getting back, because one of the main things, like I said, I was in a wheelchair last year because I tore my ACL training. And then even like my parents or like some of my friends were like, yo, you're crazy, like you're going back, like you're doing it again. I'm like, yeah, because if I don't, then these are all the kids that I've kind of like gave up on, because I was lucky enough to have these mentors and these programs and stuff when I was growing up, and it really helped me out, you know. So now I kind of want to dedicate my life to like giving back in that way, and this is the best way that I know how to right now. So that's what that's why I'm working so hard in that respect, because I want to eventually, you know, become an instructor, get my black belt in that, and then be able to teach in every way, in the artistic side. I just want to be my life is about art, like really truly about art. I want to be a visual artist, I want to be a hair artist, I want to be a martial artist, and I want to package all that together to help people in a positive way, not just like for financial gain or anything like that, So, and I think that when I build a life like that, I would be really happy, and it doesn't have anything to do with monetary gain. It's just bettering the lives of people who may be less fortunate, or and stuff like that. So I'm excited, and I plan to have all that kind of set up and running and successful by the time I'm 40, and then just live the rest of my life with my kids. They'll be growing up in these institutions. They'll be seeing how businesses run. They'll be seeing what like hard work is like, and it will be all around exercise and good and healthy living and the right mindset. And then with that, you can pretty much do anything that you want in the world, no matter of what you want to do, is by having certain philosophies, certain characteristics, certain habits, certain mindsets towards like targeting and things, right? So it's kind of like that's just one way I can teach them that, and they can use that to do whatever else they want in the world. So I would say that's kind of what my next 5 to 10 year goal would be.
Great.
Yeah, and it gives me like, and then you see like with that, because and it's really, sometimes it just takes people time to sit down and be okay, what I want to do with my life, and like what's important to me. And for me, if that's what's important to me, that already forces me to have a work-life balance, because I can't just be dicking around and like not paying attention to certain things, because I'll never reach that goal. So because of that, and because of how I accepted what my lifestyle should be like, and like exercising should be like brushing your teeth and all these things, it's I already know what I'm doing for the next 10 years. I'm not sitting there trying to figure it out. I may change my methods and stuff like that as I grow and as I learn new things, of course. But in terms of how I'm going to accomplish that, nothing really changes. It's just consistency over again.
All right, perfect. So thank you so much. Thank you for so many golden nuggets here. It was so valuable to sit down with you, finally talk. We respect you guys so much, and I cannot wait to see you guys grow more and collaborate more. So I will link their information down below. You can check out their website. You can come by the barbershop and check out their academy. And yeah, check out the next video, because I think you're really going to enjoy it.